Hello, hello, witches. How are we? Hey. All right. So, welcome to another book club. Today we're talking about Consorting with Spirits by Jason Miller. I'm really excited to talk about this one just because I feel like one I really appreciated how he was sharing a lot of his experiences throughout the book, and I don't know, it's always really interesting for me to hear like direct experiences on top of him actually breaking down like honestly very simply, and we'll get more into the conversation when we get there. Just the layout of the framework of where spirits are and how they sort of function within our universe, which I feel like I haven't seen explained the way he's done it in other books, so I really appreciated that. But we'll get more into it later. That's just like a little 2 cents that I had. And I'm also realizing my voice sounds like a little hoarse right now, so I apologize for that. Hopefully, it doesn't cause any crazy distractions. Yesterday, some of you guys were there. Takara, you were there yesterday at Tea and Tarot. So I spent uh, about most of the day. I feel like 10 hours talking to people, so my voice is a little tired out today. So just to be aware of that. But anyways, let's go right into our meeting today. And here's our agenda. As usual, we have our opening announcements, which is what we're doing right now. We're going to go into our introductions, into our discussion, and then after that, we'll have our closing announcement. Uh, yeah, let's see. Oh, I see Nisi has joined the room. Hey, all right. And before we continue forward with our meeting today, let's take a second, as we do, to acknowledge the native stewards of the land, the native land spirits. And here we honor and acknowledge that the land that we stand on was once called Lenapehoking and is home to the Lenape people. And we acknowledge that this land was stolen by the settlers and that the mistreatment of its first people still continues to this day. While we live in a world where settlers created, we promise to work on building a better world with the help and leadership of the land's original inhabitants. We honor this land and thank you for the many gifts you give us each day. Oops, sorry, guys. And thank you for allowing us to be on this land, fight on this land with you, and stand beside you. And for today's land acknowledgement, I every time we get to here, I always can't help but again, I feel like I say this almost every month, but it's just genuinely how I feel. Um, it just never feels like enough, right? Like just having a land acknowledgement. And I so badly wish that there was just something more that could be done. And recognizing that sometimes even the littlest things is the best thing you can do. And what matters most is being able to show up and advocate for those that can't and stand next to those that have had those rights stripped away or just put in the aren't centered in the conversation. Um, so sort of like with sharing that, I just wanted to one bring up into our minds Tarot for the Hard Work by wow. I know her Instagram handle, feminist, but I her name is slipping my mind. But you guys know the book I'm talking about, Tarot for the Hard Work, because that book keeps coming back to my mind when she talks about right confronting racism and moving towards liberation. And I feel like a lot of the work that happens there, while it's not the same as um, fighting back for the land, I feel like there's a lot of intersections there that sort of go hand in hand in that battle right there. And then second of all, before we move forward, I just want to take a moment of silence again, just continuing to acknowledging what's happening overseas, even though the news wants to move on or not cover everything as it's going on. But I just really wanted to acknowledge in this space that, yeah, that there's still a lot of atrocities happening across the world right now. And even though it's not something that's actively affecting us, it is actively affecting us. So, yeah, let's just take a moment here and hold some space in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. And moving onward, we're getting into our introductions. I always feel like the first half, our first half of our meeting can be guys, my words today are just kind of like my brain's like half here just because yesterday was a lot, but I don't know what it is. I just wanted to say that like I feel like the first half just kind of goes by quickly and then we're like already into the meat of it all. But yeah, don't mind me, guys. Introductions: name, pronouns, our magical path, our native spirits of the land that we're currently residing in, and then our progress with our book so far. So for today, I always like to not go first. So I'm gonna have Nisi go first, and then we're gonna go, yeah, right to left. All right. So Nisi, I'll let you take it away.
All right, cool. Hey everyone, I'm Nisi. Pronouns are she, her, hers. Magical path is Christian folk witch. Native spirits are the Muskogee people here in Greenville, South Carolina. And my book progress, I made it to chapter 10, so I am almost done.
Thanks for sharing that, Nisi. All right, Takara.
Hi everyone, I'm Takara. My pronouns are she and her. My magical path, I'm still developing, but I'm interested in hoodoo and Ifa. My native spirits are the Munse Lenape. I think last time they told me Mohegan, and I have not read the book yet, but I'm interested in it because I'm trying to like figure out more ways to connect with my spirit guide.
Nice. And yeah, Nisi and Takara, so happy that you guys are here today. I always love seeing you guys in the meetings. All right, Shonda.
Hello. I'm Shonda. I go by she, her. My magical path is I'm a Christian witch. A lot of things going on in my life, and I seem to always come back to Jesus. um, I native spirits are I can never ever remember where we are. Um, and we just moved, so this is a new place for us. And in the book, I am probably in chapter 2 of the book, but I am enjoying what I have listened to. I bought it as an ebook to listen to when I'm driving.
I love when we get the audio version of books too, because it makes for a whole different experience and gaining the material. Uh, that's awesome. Thank you for being here, Shonda. All right, Cynthia. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
So here we go again. Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. My magical path is I'm an eclectic witch, and my native spirits I am in Texas, in San Antonio, and it's the Payaya people of the Wahitaka Nation. And this is one of the first times I did not purchase this book. And but I wanted to come to book club because I wanted to hear what everyone had to say before I did. And if I really liked it, then I'm going to purchase it, because I was just like, I don't know if I wanted to see. You said something that sparked my attention, so I'm just going to be listening close. And I do have paper and pencil to write down what y'all are saying. So I'm in school right now.
Always ready to take some notes with us, Cynthia. Happy you're here. And Steph.
Hi, I'm Steph. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. My magical path is eclectic witch, with starting to sort of discover like Filipino folk traditions. The native spirit says I'm outside of Philly, so Lenape, and I did actually finish the book.
I love that we have the range of like, oh, we've had the book, we're reading it, we just got it, we're thinking about getting it. And what's awesome is it's a space for everyone. And yeah, I'm so happy that everyone's here today. So, me, hi, I'm Nori. My pronouns are she, they, magical path. I like saying eclectic Wiccan now, with some folk Catholicism starting to creep in more and more every day. Native spirits. This is the land of Lenape Hoking. And book progress. I got to, I believe, chapter 6 or 7. This book has really been one I've been trying to digest and like really sit with the experiences he shares. Cause I don't know, it's like so, I don't want to say supernatural because, like, as witches, we're always like, well, it's all natural, it's all part of it. But they just feel so supernatural. And I just think there are definitely some good stories to just sit with and really like conceptualize and think about like this happened. Like he was able to like facilitate that magic and create that space. And I just think like that's just so crazy sometimes to me and where I am in my practice. Um yeah. So with all that being said, let's get into the meat of it all. Let's get into the whole reason we are here today. And before we get into the conversation, I wanted to show you this slide and this slide because the questions I had were the size was just too small on one, and I don't want nobody to be like straining their eyes. So I wanted y'all to just take a second, look through, read the questions there. I'll flip to the other slide, give you a second to look at that, and then we'll come back to the first one and begin the conversation. And as always, know that the questions that are on the screen is not the limits of our conversation. If there's something you think of that's not on here, always feel free to bring that up. But yeah, I'm going to give y'all like a minute or so to look at the slides and just give them a little read through. The next slide. All right. And going back to the first slide. Who will start our conversation today? Where will we go? And I can always start, and that's totally fine. Oh, Nisi, I see you wanting to say something.
Sure, I will start. I'll start by saying that I absolutely love the book. I am no stranger to Jason Miller. I have at least, this will be book number 4 of his that I have. Um, his voice when you are reading, he is that uncle in the family that's gonna put you up on game. That is him. He is the let me sit you down and let me learn you something real quick, real fast, like. So again, I really like the book. As far as pulling from one of the questions, um, because he uses like a combination of like pagan yet Christian folk craft type of paths, because he's, he studied Buddhism for a while. He takes from the grimoire, so there's Christian elements in there. This book is really easy for me to conceptualize and understand, because he's using figureheads that I'm familiar with, like Lucifer, even though that, when you grow up traditionally Christian or Southern Baptist, that's considered negative, but it's still put in context that I understand. Even when he goes into the actual rituals of how he consorted with Astaroth, which was really cool, and I bookmarked that specifically because I want to try it. It's, again, it's just very easy to understand, and it really sounds like, again, from his perspective, he is talking to you like that uncle that knows, and he's gonna put you up on game. And he's very honest, he's very blunt. Chapter 7, I believe, where he talks about like fear, one of the most innovative chapters in the book, because when it comes to spirit communication, like he said, people are either like, oh, nothing can harm you, F around and find out, and then it's, no, don't ever do it, you don't know what you're doing enough. And he brings that together in such a clear and concise way of how to deal with fear, how to recognize when you are in fear, and what to do about it. And he's old school, so he's basically going to tell you to get off your ass and do it, but he's still going to tell you to get off your ass and do it in a very concise, clear, um conscientious way. He wants you to think about what you're doing. He wants you to know why you're doing what you're doing. Like he's very, again, you can hear his experience in his writing. Like he's not BSing you. And it's really refreshing to read on such a serious topic as well, with dealing with spirits. So I really enjoyed that.
I love that. Yeah, Shonda, go for it.
I do. I agree with her. When I started out reading, and he was talking about like Lucifer, and he's talking about some of the other people that he had listened to or that he had consorted with, it was kind of like when I first started, I was like, is this really? Should I be reading this? Am I going to grow listening to what he says? And I had a fear at first because I was like, I don't know. But as I listened to the book, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or, okay, I understand I need to get out of myself, I guess, as you can say, and kind of listen to how he put things and how he dealt with listening, even him listening to um the I think I heard where he was talking about how he went one place and he can listen to the native spirits in that place, but then when he left that place, he was still able to have a connection even after he was gone. And it's like, okay, I can see that. I understand. And I began to put together what he was saying and what he was meaning, and not being fearful just because you hear trigger words.
Yeah, Steph.
I agree with everyone. Like, he has a way with language where it's like definitely like accessible, where it's like this compared to like another book that we've done, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Like that one was really dense, and like it took me a long time to get through it. Like Consorting with Spirits, like it definitely was a faster read because it was just like not as dense. Like it was actionable, it was definitely informative, but like just the manner of how he writes was
Yeah,
really like, okay, I understand you, and I'm not like trying to parse through it.
yeah, I would absolutely agree because um there's definitely those authors, right? We've seen Rachel Pollack is a good example where their style of writing, you can tell they've almost like write for themselves, and like the best way of the sense of that, like they write in a way that makes sense to them, it reads to them. And I feel like that was very much how a lot of these books were written in the past, especially like early 2000s, even 90s, going further back. But nowadays I notice just a lot more of our spiritual authors, they're all about like, okay, we're tired of reading grimoires that have like convoluted sentences that aren't necessarily very clear. Like let's make something that actually the people can pick up and make some sense out of it with even these complicated topics. Yeah, I very much felt that way too. But yeah, um with what Shonda was saying about this book at the beginning, mentioning that like we need to take a second to listen and just like actually slow down and hear what's happening. It made me think about how much he emphasizes again on the importance of meditation. And I love it when any book is always talking about meditation and how like it's such a foundational block to like everything that happens, I feel like, in the spiritual realm and this land. And equally with that, I know many people have their very different opinions on meditation and its role in the practice, if everybody necessarily needs it in their practice. And I always find that to be an interesting point of conversation. So, my question to you guys is, do you how does meditation work in your practice, and do you equally hold it to the same level that Jason is? Like, do you agree? Is this the only way to make a connection with spirit? Are there other ways? Why or why not? So I just kind of want to leave that open for you guys.
This is Shonda. So for me, I think there's more than just that one thing, the meditation. Um, I believe meditation is important, but I also feel there's also needs to be a connection with who you are, who you're speaking to. That's kind of like, I guess for me, I pray a lot. Maybe not necessarily meditate because with the kids around, I can't stop and lock myself in my room and just have that peace. But I can meditate for myself if I'm cooking dinner, even if I'm just sitting in the car, I can open up and meditate. And that's very important to me. Um, I think being able to speak with your guide, your spirit, and be able to say, "Help me. I know you hear me. Am I listening?" And I'm learning to listen to that sense in the back of my head now that I used to think was, nope, nobody's talking back to me. It's just in my head. I'm beginning to know that, nope, that is something's back there telling me what I need to do and my answers. And I'm beginning to open up more to that and meditate and be like, thank you. I appreciate that because I needed that.
I want to piggyback off of what you said, Shonda. I was gonna say, as far as, again, because I'm no stranger to his work, and I've actually taken pieces of the course that he mentioned, the Take Back Your Mind course, where he basically wants you to shut the hell up and meditate. um, it's not bad. I enjoyed it. I do meditate every morning before I wake my kid up, and it has helped me immensely as far as just how I deal with my day, and how I just deal with life and being a single parent and whatnot. So I do think that it is important because any act that you can do in your mundane life can be considered meditative. Like, you can put yourself in a meditative state, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, washing your hands. It has happened to me before. Um, so I think people get tied up because of the actual sitting down, being in lotus position, thinking that you had to say num your whole renge kill or om fiddle times. You can do that, can do that, and that does work, and it holds merit and it has value, but that's not the only way. Meditation is accessible to any and everyone. Like I said, you can do something as simple as putting your feet on the floor as soon as you wake up in the morning, and you can put yourself in a meditative state. So I am for it. People should be meditating more. It does give you the opportunity to step back from your own thoughts and decipher what is you and what is not you. It's that little peak opening door to get you to spirit, like Shonda was saying. And because we're Christian, we do pray. Prayer can put you in a meditative state. So, Shonda, you may be saying that you don't get a chance to meditate because of your kids, but in those acts of prayer, in those consecrated sacred acts when you are in sacred space with Christ, that is meditative. This is just the avenue of how you're getting there. So I agree wholeheartedly. Meditate, y'all, please.
That was so well said, Nisi. And Steph, I saw that you had your hand up earlier.
Oh no, I was gonna agree. Like,
Yeah.
it's those little moments that you do to meditate. Like, just even like say sitting on a bus, sitting on the commute. Like you can you can carve out meditation, and it is so important. Like, I need to do it more myself, honestly.
I feel like we could all, right? That meditation piece and finding, I think the stillness part of it all can be daunting. Even knowing that it doesn't have to look one way, like sitting in lotus, like it can be washing the dishes. But, I'm thinking of like, are we washing the dishes in silence? I don't know if I necessarily do. I like having a podcast or like music, but that's a whole different conversation on meditation. And kind of to bring it back to this book, I'm trying to remember what page he was talking about the different layers of consciousness. Oh, perfect. I put a note for myself. Page 24. Because I thought this concept was really interesting and I was curious to see how it landed for you guys. Um, And then kind of with this, talk a little bit more about how he describes the spirit to be organized consciousness. I can't remember what page that was on specifically where he identified it as organized consciousness, but if somebody finds it, uh, yes, please feel free to shout it out and let me know. But let me kind of set up the question. So when I read that and he said, like, okay, what exactly is a spirit? Let's define that. And he defined it as organized consciousness. For me, that really like it really created an aha moment where I was like, wait a minute, like I've personally never considered that view because a big issue that I've had, oh, and it's page 14. A big issue I've had in coming into the craft and like starting to get into like spirit work and like working with deities that I'm one of the people that I can be too logical for my own good. So I very much was like, okay, like I don't think I'm talking to an actual Archangel Michael. Like there's no way that there's this man out here like with these big old wings or like, okay, I get it that we have these images, but are they really out there? You know that doubt. So I often find myself coming back to that space because again, like that logical brain taking over for better or for worse. And then when he said, here, let me see where I can read it. Okay, so yeah, page 14. Here's what I suggest. Spirits are organized consciousness. It's that simple. The dictionary defines consciousness as a state or quality being characterized by sensation, emotion, volition, and thought. I'm going to read this whole little section just for the conversation. I am more or less an animist. I think the universe is conscious, all space and time, pregnant with formless awareness that can organize in endless ways. I don't know all the ways and I don't pretend to. Frankly, I think there are more ways than we can ever know. But let's brainstorm a few different ways of organization anyways. Where'd it go? Okay. So how is it organized? I'm on page 15 now. Are archangels self-organized or does the tradition of a spirit come? Wow, I cannot read today, guys. Are archangels self-organized or does the tradition a spirit comes from take part in the organization of that spirit? And this is the last little part I'll read. I believe that the reality behind the spirit is that it is beyond what we humans have said about him, specifically talking about Archangel Michael. But at the same time, I think that the name and the images and stories we know can't be fully separated from us. Um, and I feel like I still didn't read the section I wanted to read, but basically what he's kind of trying to say is that when you think about when you think about what makes up you, right? We know that, okay, I am not my fingers, I'm not necessarily my hair, but I feel like me, the essence of me is something kind of internal. And then if we go inwards and try to define that, what is it exactly? It's that specific combination of the emotions that Nori specifically has. It's that combo of my experiences that have created the thoughts I have. And also my thinking patterns. So it's like a combo of your emotions, your behavior, your thinking patterns, and within the thinking patterns, the way I conceptualize what he was saying is also like my choice making ability, like my will. Um, and then okay, if you take that perfect concoction of these emotions, these feelings, these thoughts, and it lines up perfectly, it makes the mixture of Nori. But if you make some adjustments to that behavior, to those emotions, all of a sudden you end up with Cynthia. Or if you switch up that combo again, you have Takara, right? So then it's like, oh, me, however, right? Want to conceptualize that again, is like in these layers, in this specific combination of how I'm then understanding organized consciousness. And then taking that idea and applying it to a spirit, for me, that just makes a lot more sense of like, oh, okay, Archangel Michael, yes, it's not to say that the way he appears on earth and the way he appears to humans is not true. Actually, that's like very true. And that's part of the work that's happening in visualization and being able to access like different realms. And, you know, at the end of the day, spirit communicating how they can to us, and we can't perceive like what they're perceiving. So it works through images, colors, certain forms. I can better grasp like, oh, okay. So this archangel is this sort of organized consciousness. And I'm thinking the behaviors of their mythos, the feelings that they've had in their stories. And then seeing the work that happens around the world with these certain spirits, saints, deities. And then through those patterns, you kind of are able to then grab that, okay, this organized consciousness feels like this. When they're speaking to me, I notice that they sort of speak in this certain tone and this certain thought pattern, what have you. And I just wanted to share that to put out how I sort of came to understand and looked at that phrase, because it really like my mind was like, what? And even explaining it, I feel like I'm still sort of learning through it. But yeah, I was curious what you guys think of that, if you guys view it any differently. And then yeah, agree or disagree with his definition of a spirit. Yeah.
I agree with it. Just sort of taking it into account that he also mentions that, you know, we are also spirit, made up of spirit, and it just sort of is also like just they manifest how they manifest to you. Like he was talking about how traditionally, oh my god, I can't, the name's escaping me, but the deity the spirit they work with a lot, like
Hecate?
no, like traditionally manifests or is traditionally associated with a man, but appears as a woman to him.
I like half remember.
Astaroth?
As thank you,
All
yes,
right.
but just like it's sort of almost like just tapping into like he mentions in the book like not every spirit is going to look the same for everyone, and it's based on, like you said, like traditions, the um like what you expect, and sometimes it's not what you expect.
So again, I'll preface this by saying I did not read the book. I do want to read it now. I think for me, my issue, maybe why I was a little hesitant about the book, is that I didn't grow up knowing about any of these angels or any of these spirits. Or so for me, it's hard for me to even like put a concept to it because it was just Jesus and God. You know what I mean? And Holy Ghost, which was just this, wonderful experience. But so it's so for people to be like, oh, archangel, this, I'm like, or archangel. See, I can't even say the word right, or any of that. It's hard for me to conceptualize it. And I feel like you kind of said that earlier, Nori, when I'm too logical about it. And I'm like, well, is it going to be wings? Are they going to have flaming swords? Like, will it be horns? I guess that's why, like, I feel like it's harder for me to kind of overcome certain hurdles. And like I was saying in the chat earlier, like my fear of like just like consorting with spirits is because I'm like, one, I'd have to like fully believe that they are there, but then also like open myself to this realm of like information or entities that I'm not familiar with. Because like maybe I have been having communications with these other entities or spirits and I don't know because I don't know those names. Because that's not what I grew up knowing those names as. Like I didn't grow up in a religion where I had, that we talked about the angels outside of like, whatever was said in the Bible, or that like, like I revered like the Virgin Mary, or that, or that like there were several deities, so that's why it's a little harder for me. So like I'm trying to like make my way to it. um and like understand it, because I think I have to intellectually understand it before I can like really like I guess accept it. But I definitely do believe that there are spirits and there are spirits around. I'm just not sure how to like overcome that burden. So hopefully, once I read the book, and maybe I won't be scared to do. I think Nisi, you were saying that he's got like a summoning for Askaloth, I think you said.
Astaroth.
Astra. Okay.
Yeah, that's an entity that comes from a very old grimoire. It's called the Ars Goetia. Uh, but if you're still working through hurdles and what your comfort level is with spirits, I probably wouldn't start there. He makes very good points before we even get to Astaroth and Lucifer and all the other entities. To start with the land spirits. That's another reason why he is such a solid writer. Start with spirits of the land. Um, it's like how we talk about in like Christianity enlarging your territory. Right now, your territory is you figuring out whether or not this even resonates or not. So once that territory has been conquered and established, you enlarge that territory slightly, only slightly, just enough to allow the experience. And then, like he was saying in the book, is it useful? Is it helpful? So it's okay. It's okay to be where you are. I was there too at one point. Don't do what I did though, cause I effed around and found out. So don't do that part.
Yeah, I'm afraid of
Don't
that.
do that. As far as I definitely agree with how he defines the spirit. What I was gonna say, my original thought was when Nuri was reading the passage, it made me think about the show. This is why pop culture can sometimes be helpful. It made me think about the show American Gods, where they were explaining the concept of Jesus and how when individual people pray to Jesus, you get a slightly different version because we all interact with spirits differently. And it can manifest in the multitudes of ways that it manifests. So Mexican Jesus, white Jesus, black Jesus, Hebrew Jesus. Like it that show really illustrated very well how when a person interacts with spirit, how it can manifest. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the cookie cutter way. That's just a uh general guideline, but definitely open to interpretation. This spiritual wall is really about operating in the liminal, operating in the in-betweens. So learn to get comfortable with that, and that takes time, and that's fine, that's okay. Learn to get comfortable with that, and you'll be a step closer towards attempting to work with spirits, or start with the spirits that you're comfortable with. You're a former Christian, try Jesus, girl. He's all right.
Nisi, I had another question for you because I think from everybody here today, I think you're the only one who's reached the fear and danger. I think it was called like the fear, dealing with the fear of it all chapter.
Yep.
And I've been hearing a little bit of like, oh, like I'm a little afraid to kind of step into more spirit work. Like I feel a little doubtful of it. And I'm curious to hear from you again, Nisi, just from that chapter, what would you impart to us on what Jason Miller was writing about on dealing with these feelings of fear and feeling like, like I'm scared I might do something. And then I heard you mentioning that you fucked around and you find out. So I'm curious about a little
Mhm.
bit about that too. So enlighten us.
I will do my best. Jason Miller kind of comes from the standpoint of fucking around and finding out, but also doing that a little bit more smartly and a little bit more from a place of logic. He refers to his previous work in that chapter, so I'm sure y'all have read it. I think the year before, Protection and Reversal Magic. So he basically tells you your fear is real to a degree. You probably have also watched way too many horror movies. But if you feel this level of fear, that is okay. Refer back to previous works of Protection and Reversal Magic because he doesn't go into it per se. He just kind of uses those main entities to give you a kind of breakdown on how he would do a protection rite or ritual based off of Hecate, based off of Asmodeus, and based off of Lucifer. So he gives you like a guideline of how to craft protection around yourself because you can not do it, fuck around and find out, or you can, and results may vary. And he's very honest about that. Which again, that was a standout chapter for me. As far as me fucking around and finding out, so I thought I was going to be like a left hand path witch at one point in time, very early on in my life. So when I got into spirit work, I went into goetic work, so I have attempted to contact demonic entities before and have successfully done it before. The one in particular, and he is mentioned in this book, his name is Payman. He's one of the 72 demons. If you don't know about Payman or the 72 demons, or Solomon is the one who compelled those demons to build the temple. We don't get into that being like Southern Baptists or whatever, but if you listen long enough, or if you're in church long enough and you hear certain old ladies, you get put up on game. Anywho, I follow a particular book, I do the ritual, and I have a very small child at the time. My son is 2 or 3 years old at this time. And the response that I got, it's so funny. The response that I got was like, "Oh, sweet baby. Go back and try again, though." And that's what I mean by fucking around and finding out. Like, yes, but also not so much. So those entities have their own level of consciousness. They have their own level of intellect. And at the time when I was trying to do those rituals, people in the forums that I was in, they were very heavy on formalities. It was very much so follow the grimoire to the T. And I'm like, girl, I'm not doing all that. Or it's very loosey goosey where it's almost no ritual in it in and of itself, and that just kind of feels like you're playing with your own subconscious. So again, having this work brings it to a head for me. But yeah, I thought I was gonna be a left-hand pather, so my first couple of times I tried contacting demons, and it's, you do deal with your fear. I also have another story if you don't mind me sharing for like 0.2 seconds. Is everybody okay?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Ha! So yeah, there's a seal in this book too. It's the seal of Lucifer. And it's a particular seal for Lucifer in Asia. It's not the one for the Americas. And there's a reason for that. And I don't want to spoil the book for you. So you're gonna read it, you're gonna find out why. And yeah, I attempted to contact Lucifer, and in the book that I was reading at the time, I wish I could remember it, but I can't. It said that you would know once you had contacted the entity because you would feel something on your left hand side right over your shoulder. And by George, yes. And it is the scariest. It was so scary at the time because I'm working through the same thing that Takara was working through at the time. I'm trying to deconstruct Christian views, but yet still, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, things like that. But I was like, ooh, no. I closed down shop so fucking fast. Oh, I closed down shop so fast. And also, to speak to fear, sometimes using your intellect can be to your advantage. Because one of the ways that I got over being scared of Lucifer or being scared of Satan or being scared of Beelzebub was after I had that experience of calling that spirit and feeling that on my left shoulder. I went through and actually intellectually deconstructed like the Baphomet. So like learning what it means to have one hand up like this, one hand down, one of the arms say dissolve, one of the arms say coagula, why it has breasts, why is there a goat head, why is there a caduceus in the middle of the Baphomet, why are there two children there? So sometimes using your intellect can be to your advantage because if you can deconstruct the thing, you can build it back up. So use your brain to your advantage when you're ready.
Yeah, so I think to build on the point, like, I think the next the chapters after Fear and Danger, like, are definitely very helpful because, it, like, I don't want to spoil too much either, but it talks about, like, besides protection magic, like, how you approach the spirit also matters in terms of communicating with them because some you're like, let's have a friendly chat, here's some tea, just like that. Others you have to be like, can't walk softly, carry a big stick about. You have to like, so sort of assert yourself. And I think that's really interesting too. And actually, I'm starting to read the Protection Magic by Jason Miller right now too. It's really good. Um, but yeah, no, I think like there definitely is like a lot of distrust of spirits colored by like the movies he mentions, like Hereditary and like The Exorcist and things like that. And But then there's like the other school of thought that's like nothing bad will happen to you, and you're like, yeah, I've had a fuck around and find out moment myself before, so I definitely see where you're coming from.
When he gets to the part where he's talking about how to be a little bit more compelling, where you're basically like, think of it like yoking somebody up. Like somebody has tried your gangster, and now you got to see about somebody. There is certain language like, if you do not obey me, may you be cursed or damned. I was reading it and I was like, yo, who is you talking to? And if I was a spirit, not only am I not answering you, not only will I not answer this, like I'm gonna send my people. If I got legions, oh yeah, we about to come see about you because you're not gonna talk to me. You're not gonna talk to me this type of crazy. But I get why. You should know how to do it, but it shouldn't be tactic number one. So yeah, that made me cackle reading that part in that book. Like, I am a human and I feel offended. I don't. Ew.
I have a quick question. Since you both have read this, and it seems like y'all read the other book too. Which one should I read first? The protection one before I go into reading this one? Actually conjuring spirits? Or this one first and then go back to the protection one?
Well, I'm reading the protection second because I was like, okay, these are really interesting and actionable things to do for conjuring spirits, consorting with spirits, but like, let's be real, I gotta brush up on my protection stuff. So I read consorting with spirits first, but before I do anything actionable, I am finishing protection magic and reversal magic.
And yeah, I agree with Steph. Oh, go for it, Nisi.
Oh, I was just gonna say I agree. Everything Steph said, yes.
Yeah, you can never have too much protection magic. Well, actually, I take that back. I think you can. But it is never bad to continue to brush up on your protection magic. And ultimately, I consider that foundational, right? Just like meditation. And before we get into anything more complex, anything a little bit more nitty gritty, I never think it's a bad idea to refresh your protection magic. But now I feel like I have to explain why I said why I think you can have too much protection magic. So why do I think that? Okay. So I read somewhere and then I thought about it and it makes a lot of sense. Yes, it's important to protect yourself, protect your space, protect your home, and not let the negative energies not come into your space, not let the stagnant energies be lingering around. And all right, I'm gonna protect, let's say, my room, just like perfectly from everything and then some. Awesome, right? Now my room is locked and loaded, nothing can get in, nothing can get out, and now I have nothing happening in my room, in my life. Like there is no like let's say, oh, I want some prosperity, like I want to call in some of that energy, I want to call in some help from a specific spirit, but because I put these walls up so hard, nothing can actually enter because like your protection magic was like so good, nothing can come in now. And equally with that, I'm in my room having a stank attitude, and now that has nowhere to go, and it's going to be here stuck with me, not able to leave in the way that I view my magic to protect my space. So for that, I do say it is possible to overprotect yourself. Equally, same idea with over cleansing yourself. Like if you continuously cleanse your space, you end up like undoing every single spell you've ever like put out there. You clear out like all the previous work you have done. And sometimes we don't want to be bleaching everything every single time. Just as we don't need to necessarily lock all 10 locks on the door every time we walk out. Like sometimes you can, leave one or two because you're going to have a friend over later. You don't want to have to deal with that. But something I would definitely encourage y'all to think about just further on your own. Is that possible? Can I overprotect? Am I overprotecting? And I always encourage people to ask yourself these questions and just see where it takes you. Because again, ultimately, the magic is in your hands. And if there's 8 billion people, there's 8 billion different ways to do this stuff. So yeah, I just want to leave you with those thoughts. And before I go to the next slide, I did want to ask, because I did hear a little bit about some of us planning on doing some consorting with the spirits here. How has this book inspired you so far? Just in your practice, like I wonder, even outside of just, oh, I think I do want to work with spirits. I wonder if it's ignited any other inspirations or things to try there. And I'll share mine after somebody else does. Shonda, is that yes? Go for it.
Sorry guys, I was driving. I think when I first heard consorting with spirits, I was thinking more on my own spirits, my loved ones. Started reading the book, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I can go elsewhere and bring in and talk to others that I never even thought about contacting, you know. So the book did help me to understand that it doesn't have to always be what I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Shonda. For me, it really has inspired me to really lean on my faith a little bit more. And just know that having faith, because I do believe in spirits existing and the universe being very much very alive. And even though, right, I can, like Takara was saying, that I can get kind of stuck in, oh well, I don't know, because like I don't feel like I have the evidence for it. But yeah, I know that I do believe in spirits. Leaning into that side a little bit more and recognizing that as a human, I don't, one, um I can't necessarily have that evidence, and then asking myself, like, do I need that evidence to show like my belief, right? And then that's where faith kind of comes in a little bit. So this book really has encouraged me to just have a little bit more faith, and then also, yeah, try and not be scared and not be held back by like the fear and the doubt of it all. In my case, more so, I don't want to say not fear, because definitely like it's there, and I feel like the doubt is just stronger when it comes to me in my practice. Yeah, so that's where it inspired me a little bit.
Yeah, definitely inspired me as well in terms of that, because I am one who doubts a little bit, and um like I think it's also encouraging me to rethink my meditation practice and be a little bit more consistent, because I feel like I'm a little spiritually blind. Like there's people who are super sensitive. I'm like on the opposite end of the spectrum here. So I think like it sort of encourages me that the more I meditate, maybe the more I can open myself up a little bit.
Well, this book has inspired me to get back on the saddle. I shared my experiences of how I've attempted to contact, demonic entities before. I wasn't in the greatest place doing that either. So now that I have a solid basis in meditation, I have better mechanics on magic. I feel like if I tried it again, it won't go as, the result will be different. So I feel a little bit more confident to get back on the saddle and try it again and not just stick with, Jesus, Joseph, and Mary, because in essence, I'm scared. That's why that chapter was so good for me. Because you realize that in essence, that was fear for me. So I needed those. I needed that reiterated. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so real. That was so Nisi, you just been on it today. Like I gotta say, like this whole meeting today, you just been spitting facts and bars, like just all over the place. uh and continuing the discussion, going to the second slide. Uh yeah, I'm curious. Well, actually, before I say anything else, some of these questions I got from the back of his book, actually, because let me see, chapter 12 is his chapter on questions and answers. It starts on page 198, if you're curious. And basically, this whole chapter is just a bunch of questions that he commonly gets when he does workshops or like has talks on spirit communication. And a lot of them, one, I feel like are questions that we would ask, like we would probably have right now. And two, I think that just make for good discussion in this space. Some of them are up there. How do you discern spirit communication from ego? What are some indicators that your relationship with a specific spirit has become toxic or obsessive? And I just found these to be the questions that like we need to be asking ourselves every single time, but I don't think we talk about enough. So yeah, moving in that direction and you guys seeing what's on here, I'm curious what, yeah, let's start with how do you discern spirit communication from ego? Let's start there. And I'm curious, yeah, Shonda.
I'm sorry, it's me again. Um,
Don't be sorry. I'm
I
happy you're talking.
I think for me, when I am looking at spirit, um, I ask my questions. Um, I also feel the energy. Is it something that's coming from my heart, or is it something coming from my head? A lot of times when I hear from spirit, um, it's my head. Um, whereas, how can I put this? So some of you guys know my bonus daughter died about a year and a half ago, and I still talk to her. I talk to her just like she is in front of me every day. Um, but I can also, I know when she's around. I'm raising her son. So when I'm having a bad day and I'm crying and this boy is taking me through, it's like I can feel her. I can feel the love. And I don't think it's my ego making me kind of like, oh, this is what I think she would say, or this is what I think she would want me to feel. I can tell. Um, that another example is my car. I had problems with my car the other week, and I misplaced my keys because I didn't drive my car for a week. And I was like, Lord, where are my keys? And I prayed to the spirits, and I was like, hey guys, I can't find my keys. It's been a week. Did one of you guys take my keys? Are y'all playing with me? And in the back of my head, I heard where it says, look under your bed. It's in the box under your bed. And that's exactly where my keys were. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. I I have learned how to discern between the spirits helping me and me being in myself. Because if I'm in myself, nothing works right. But if I am connecting with my spirit and the spirit is guiding me and I'm listening, everything seems to work out for my good.
I want to jump in again. I have a funny story about losing my keys. My kid was an infant then, so I was still carrying around a big, heavy ass car seat. And I ended up leaving my keys in the car. And I got so spooked that I could not find my keys. I called my kid's dad and he came to my apartment, him and his brother. And literally, I had them I had them searching in the dumpster by my apartment. And all I had to do, y'all, once like the fear kind of settled, like I really probably have just locked myself out of my car. I sat down in my crappy apartment with my newborn. I closed my eyes and I physically saw myself go down the steps of my apartment, right out of my apartment building, go into my car, go to my rear view window back there where I had like picked up his car seat and I had dropped the keys back there and I politely walked out and got them. And I had to apologize because they literally got in the dumpster looking for my keys. So to answer that question of how you decipher ego from spirit, it leans back to Jason Miller's definition. Was it actionable? Was it useful? It was useful because I physically saw myself come out of my apartment, go down the steps, walk to my car, open the back door, and my keys were right there next to a dead wasp. So And that is again why the meditation piece, at least for me, is so important. Because if I hadn't been practicing meditative practices at the time, I wouldn't have known to do that. Or I would have thought I'm literally just losing my shit because I can't find my keys. And I've called people over here to help me, and they're like, "Well, girl, you just gonna have to call the dealership and get you another key or something because we don't know." So yeah.
Very solid answers. Yeah. And not that there was a right answer, like what you guys were saying makes sense, right? With Shonda, I hear the word listening coming back up again. And then Nisi, you're mentioning, right? Being able to sit in that stillness and like recognize, okay, what's this message? What can it do for me? Where is it taking me? And I wanted to read Jason Miller's answer because, again, whoever doesn't have the book, this chapter 12 is really cool because literally the question's right there and then you can get his words of like how he would answer. So, yeah, how do you discern spirit communication from ego? He says, meditate regularly so that you know the texture and content of your own mind so intimately that you can easily discern outside input, which I just love that. Beyond that, be wary of communications that blow up your ego and make you feel special. The community is filled with people who are chosen by the gods, but who can't seem to manage even the basics of life that most people can. And I just love any reminder for us, especially in the line of work and craft that we do, that um, being wary of what can blow up your ego and just make you feel special, like make you feel like that chosen one. Because I feel like so often, or if you end up down like the wrong tracks, I don't want to say wrong tracks because that feels very limiting to people who practice differently. But when you end up in those selfish tracks where you're very focused on just yourself and the messages you're getting isn't necessarily messages of, oh, yes, I have these strengths and I have these areas where I can continue to improve upon, or, oh, I don't fully recognize my talents and maybe like public speaking. So let me do some work, right? Actionable and useful, like he was saying, right? It doesn't come off like that. If we're only focused on, oh, I'm so chosen because I already have all the talents, like, because Spirit said, like, I'm already good at it all. But, like, girl, have you ever done a public speaking event? Like, have you done the thing? And we see those people, right? And then just being able to discern that, like, okay, yes, you're special, but how is it showing up? Has it been actionable for you to hear that you're amazing and wonderful and great at everything? Is it useful for your life? Is it helping you keep things on track? Are you building something? Are you creating something with your life? I think those are good questions to ask ourselves if we ever end up in those really like ego, super high spaces. Not to say, and I'm not saying that don't be confident, you don't have skills. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think you guys know what I'm putting down. But very much so that like don't let your head get blown up so far that you're not doing anything. Like if you ever find yourself in that space where you're like, oh, I got it all together, but for some reason your bank account has $5, like, girl, maybe we gotta do something here. Like, what's this communication actually doing for you? So I just love that answer and I love that reminder.
Really quickly,
Yeah.
when you were saying that, Nuri, Takara, I thought about you. So a practical example of this: be aware of people, because you're saying you're interested in like hoodoo and possibly like Ifa and stuff. Be aware of people that constantly claim that they are a child of Oshun, or that they are a Babalawo or a Hugon. Like, this is kind of what he means. Like, there are people, there's a process also in that where if you want to find out what Orisha is on your head, you have to go sit on the mat. Like, there's a whole divination process that is performed by a priest before you know that information. Because it's a religion and that needs to be respected. Again, what was I saying? Yes, beware of those egotistical people that constantly claim that Oshun is on their head, or Oya is on their head, or Shango is on their head, and you don't hear and or see any respect to the religion, any honor of the religion. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, people are just saying that because they heard it somewhere, or because they want to be a love child, and they don't understand it's like 8 different facets of Oshun T. that they're just so enamored with the fact that they can claim a spirit, but they don't know what it takes to claim the spirit because they're not in the religion. Like, that's what I think about when people are in their ego. Like, that's a whole religious practice in and of itself. Like, you can't be set tripping if you can hear what I'm saying.
No, that was a great example. Like, just, yeah, like I think you said it perfectly. And I noticed in the chat, Steph has sent a message earlier that I think very much lands in this area. So I'll read your message out loud, Steph. Let's see. So you put here, there's definitely a get into your own head moment with working with spirits. Like he mentions in the book, it takes time to be able to discern if it's you or spirits. I think his method of asking if what the spirits are saying is actionable is a great tip. Which, yeah, I feel like ties into this conversation well. And like, how can we discern if it's spirit communication or if it's our ego, and that check in, right? Okay, great information. What can I do with this? And if you find that answer to be like nothing, or like, oh, just soak it in, maybe that was your ego. Maybe that wasn't necessarily spirit communication. Also asking yourself that second question, is it useful? And to that point, what I do want to say is, to that point, because I don't think that spirit wouldn't affirm us, right? If we're like, oh, like kudos to you, like you're doing the thing. I think that would be a great place to ask yourself, oh, like, is it useful? Like, is this a kudos from something that I know I just recently worked on? Or does it feel just kind of like a randomly dropped one? So something else to sort of keep in mind. But yeah, any other thoughts on discerning spirit communication or any other questions?
Well, even though I'm still new to it, I think with me, and we talked about this earlier, I kind of feel like I know the communication because I get pushed back into another direction. So a lot of times, I'm stubborn and I got my own plan. It's part of my sign and just me, and I'm going to do this, and then I find that like I get course corrected, and it might not be an immediate course correction, but there is one. And so I'm learning that that is also a form of communication. And then I also get a lot of my responses, like in like settings like this or when talking to other people, like it's like confirmation of stuff that has probably already been there. So I don't think it's like my ego. But I just ignored it because I was like, yeah, no, like I didn't want to trust it. And so I feel like that's also how I know, like I get the correction that kind of comes a little later, but then I normally get like someone saying that same thing to me. Or like, for instance, I had like a reading yesterday, and like he pulled almost every single card I've pulled for myself. Like it was uncanny. I was like, oh yeah, man, that card looks familiar. Oh yeah, that one. So I think it does that. And maybe it's just because of the level I'm at that this is how spirit is communicating with me. Like I don't hear the voice. If I'm doing biblical, there's no burning bush. But I get like, someone saying something, or like my life kind of taking a different road than I thought it would.
I appreciate you for sharing that, Takara.
Takar, he specifically talks about in the book how the relationship that you build with spirits isn't supposed to be like one way. Like it's supposed to challenge you to some degree. So think of those redirections that you're getting in the spirit as those, not challenge in the way that it's supposed to be hard, difficult, or oppressive or anything, but just it's a relationship, and this is an active consciousness. It's not always going to agree. It's going to put you on the best path for you, and that sometimes can be challenging to enact. So
Yeah, and I would say that's just further proof that you're listening to spirit. Because if it was your ego, you would just do everything they would say just fine, right? Because like you're feeding my ego. This is great. I want to do this, whatever. But yeah, like you noticing that resistance and like, oh, like I don't know, and then spirit being like, girl, we gotta go this way. Yeah, like yes, you were just like you were saying, it's very solid affirmation to know that you're not coming from just like an egotistical place. Yeah. And let's move on to the next question. So, what are some indicators that either you have experienced or that you may know about that lets you know that your relationship with a certain spirit has become toxic or obsessive? Have we ever ended up in a space like that with the spirit?
I guess I will say yes. Prior to becoming a witch or prior to stepping onto this path, just again being a Southern Baptist Christian, that relationship with Christ gets very toxic. The foundation of the relationship is toxic anyway, because you're in essence told that you're nothing, you're no one, you're nothing but a sinner. Your first ritual within to the religion is confessing that you are said sinner, and sin is not explained properly ever at all. And you go through a water baptism, which is a ritual in and of itself. So yes, my relationship with Christ as a spirit has become toxic or obsessive because you tried to enact this perfection. You tried to do every single thing that Christ did in the Bible outside of performing the miracles, because you can't do that. That has to be ordained. And how does one get ordained? You go through like the clergy, the priesthood, and things like that. So yeah, I can definitely say that it's become toxic or obsessive for me being a Christian, because that's how the religion wants you to observe that particular, whether you want to call it a deity or an ascended master is totally up to you. But yeah, it's that constant aspiration to perfection, but you also know deep down inside as a Christian, you'll never attain that perfection and you're never supposed to. And that can be very saddening. That can be fucking depressing, to be honest.
I agree with you on that. And I think a lot of that is, as Christians, we're taught one thing. And then, like, for me, when I picked and I chose Wicca, and I was like, I felt so comfortable, so calm, so happy in this religion. I am a pastor's kid. My mom saw one of the lists I was making of stuff, and she hit the roof. And it was kind of like, it, I believe that we have the higher power and it's in us. But as a Christian, they teach you that you have to go to God and nothing's going to happen for you if you don't believe. But I've learned all I have to do is believe. I can still pray to my higher power, and I know in myself, and I can manifest it. I didn't even never even heard the word manifesting until I got out of Christianity. And now it's like things are turning around for me, because now I understand, and I'm beginning to understand. I can't say my true power, but I'm beginning to understand what I am capable of doing and still have a higher power with me to support me without me having to bow down to something else.
Yeah. Former Catholic here, recovering Catholic, as I like to say. And I think that's one of the reasons I had left the church, was just, it is a, like, it feels like a lot of the hierarchy has gotten, doesn't really get into the spirit of things. Like, it's very black and white, and it gets really caught up in dogma, to the point where sometimes it's like I said, ignoring the gray areas, because life is not black and white at all. And so, I mean, like, I definitely see that, like, sort of, like, that toxic relationship with, like, Christianity, like, that you have this unattainable goal.
Yeah, relationship, right? Imagine if we had a friend who expected us to always be on 10, and if we were ever on 9 or 9.5, they just want to smite you with their might. Like, that wouldn't feel very good. Like, that wouldn't feel like a very good relationship. And I'm currently looking for his answer for what he said to get his words exactly. But yeah, but while I'm looking for that, the way for me that I would under some indicators for me on if a relationship has gotten toxic or obsessive is looking at it like how we look at our human relationships. Like, I don't want to be friends with somebody who's gonna make me feel like I'm never good enough and that I'm never gonna reach it, or even a relationship that I'm so obsessed with this person that I can't eat, like I can't sleep, I can't do anything without having like this specific person on my mind, and it's getting in the way of me showing up for my life and like my goals. Like that would also be a toxic relationship. And if a spirit is getting you into that position, right? Maybe we want to reevaluate that relationship and ask ourselves those questions again. Is this useful? Is it useful to be so just so obsessed with a spirit that your life's falling apart? Is it useful to have somebody berate you constantly to get better? Like, is that the method that works for you? Do we need to try other methods? And maybe, I'm not going to be the one to answer that for you, because there's probably people out there that it does work for them. But again, asking yourself that question and being able to notice, okay, here are some indicators that it's getting a little toxic or it's getting a little obsessive. But if we let's see, give me just a second to look here, because then I also again want to read what he had mentioned.
It's on page 199.
Thank you. Do we have different pages 199? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So the answer that Jason Miller gives, so how do we know? The same ones that happen with people. They are making demands that you don't wish to meet and turn threatening when you don't meet them. They are intrusive and jealous. They punish for small infractions and so on. And that's making me think back to like what you were mentioning, Nisi, about Jesus and how that relationship in the church sometimes can be a little, yeah, toxic. Just right, just what it is, toxic. Now,
Right.
before we because we're nearing the end of our meeting here, I wanted to open the floor at the end and just if anybody had any final thoughts that we haven't had a chance to get to, just something that's been on your mind, maybe a question you really want to ask the group, now is the time.
I think I would really recommend this book to anyone who wants to work with spirits, just because it's approachable, actionable, and it gives you like a more realistic picture. It's not like all love and light or all like you will die.
I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Alrighty. I will take that wonderful silence as all of us have gotten our thoughts out. We've had some good conversation and that we feel good. And then I just want to say to you guys, one, thank you for being here and showing up every month so faithfully to book club and just, having these good conversations. Like I always enjoy being in this space. And then also for giving me a little bit of grace today, because my brain's just like, ooh. And yesterday the energy was just so good. It was just such a great time at Tian Tarot. Whether you were there or got to view the lives, it was just so nice. So thank you for letting me kind of decompress a little bit in this space today. And moving into our closing announcements, October is right around the corner, which is crazy. I'm going to take y'all off here just so we can see what's happening on the screen because the letters are a little small. But nothing personal. I love seeing all your faces. So we're reading Jambalaya for October, and I have been so excited to read this one because I personally haven't read it. I know it's been a very popular book for years. Allie, this is like one of her like top 10 books, if not top 5, and she's always raving about it. So I really want to get into it just simply because I love anything Allie recommends. And reading here, since its original publication in 1985, Jambalaya has become a classic among women spirituality educators, practitioners of traditional African religions, environmental activists, and cultural creatives. So this book is reaching fields way outside of just spirituality, which I think is so cool. a mix of memoir, spiritual teachings, and practices from Afro-American traditions such as Ifa, Orisha, and New Orleans voodoo. It offers a fascinating introduction to the world of nature-based spirituality, goddess worship, and rituals from the African diaspora. More relevant today than it was 36 years ago, which that's really hard for a book to do, to stay relevant. So that just tells you how great it's going to be of a read. I'm, again, so excited. The wisdom of jambalaya reconnects us to the natural and spiritual world and the centuries-old traditions of African ancestors whose voices echo through time, guiding us and blending with our own traditions. And that's just a little sneak peek of what we'll be getting into. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the meat of that one. Announcements, what is coming up this month? So we have a private chat that is going to be live streamed in the Coven with Juju Bay. She is the author of the Book of Juju, happening October 12th at 1 p.m. And details are also in the Coven Community Events tab. This is also going to be an in-person event that is a ticketed in-person event, but as a Coven community member, you get free access to the conversation that's going to be happening in that room that day. So definitely be sure to have some questions. I'm pretty sure there's going to be an opportunity that if you guys have questions to ask her, you'll be able to drop it in the chat and they will be asked in the room in that day. The next Moonlit Metaphysics will be happening October 18th at 8:30 p.m. as they have been happening the Friday before the full moon. The next Witches of Color group, and again, Witches of Color support group is open to all our POC witches, and our white identifying witches are asked to leave space and make space for those that, sometimes we need more safe spaces for our women of color and people of color. And that will be happening October 20th at 10 p.m. And I'm pretty sure everybody here is actually, yeah, all of us can go to the Witches of Color support group. But yeah, I'm putting that additive out there. And then our next book club meeting will be happening on October 27th, 7:30 p.m. And we'll be reading Jambalaya. And I'm just putting y'all all back up here so we can all say goodbye properly. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to give one more window if there was any announcement anybody else had, just any final party words before we wrap up our meeting today.
I kind of have an announcement, but it's not mine really.
Go for it.
So I actually took some courses with Yeye Louise Tish. She's awesome. And she is actually trying to make Jambalaya a school. And so if you follow her on IG, she's raising money for it. She basically wants to have like a school, a place to live so that we can actually come and like learn and like have this for generations to come. So I know we're reading it next month, so that's going to be awesome. But just to let you know, so if you do follow her, if you want to follow her, that's one of the things she's thinking about because she actually really is about teaching and learning. So it's not my plug for me. I just think it's such an awesome idea. And I think we all like that idea of like having a place that we can all go to, like a summit for like, witches. She wants it to be in California, but like we can all go there, we can learn and like fellowship, and it'll be places to live and work the land and all this other kind of stuff.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Actually, I'm going to have to go look at her page and read all about that. It's so cool. Awesome. All right. Let me see. Anyways, that is the end of our meeting. My screen is showing Cynthia twice. I don't know if that's happening. Okay. So I noticed that and I was like, whoa, Cynthia, you're witching with us right here. All right. But yeah, okay. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for a great conversation. I send you off into the night. Have a wonderful evening, and may you have another great week next week, full of blessings and a really just solid Monday, guys. All right. Be everyone.